Well, guess what? We're going to continue our series on how to wreck your life. Sound exciting? Goes on every day. We're going to talk about wisdom today, the path of wisdom and the path of a fool. Might be interesting. So we're going to talk about some of the ways we can wreck our lives, but we're also going to be talking about some of the ways we can navigate these really important areas like decision making or the things we say out of our mouth. And we talked about that last week. And the way we manage and handle relationships or comparing our lives to other people. We're going to be talking about how to do all of that in a way that leads us to a life of joy, peace, fulfillment, and love. It's a life God has in mind for all of us. I wish I had known about this wonderful book many years ago in high school and college called Wisdom. And I wouldn't have been so dumb, making dumb mistakes that anybody on drugs could have done better if they had an ounce of wisdom. So we're just going to, and I suspect I'm in the right crowd too. Yeah, I suspect there's a few of you in the same way. I don't want to be a train wreck. And let's be honest, that it's dangerously easy to have happen in our lives. And of course, we're going to do it from this book of the Bible, this wisdom that goes beyond any other source of wisdom out in our country or land. In fact, we're going to be specifically looking at an Old Testament book called Proverbs. It's called the Book of Wisdom. Because of all the different books in the Bible, there are 66, as many of you know. Proverbs speaks as direct and blunt to some of the critical areas of our lives as any other book in the Bible. Now, even though these words were written thousands of years ago, they could have been written last week because they talk about the human experience and the realities of what every one of us deal with almost every day, and it makes good sense. Well, we've all experienced some of this stuff in one way or another, good or bad. So Proverbs takes the timeless, precious wisdom of God and makes it accessible and understandable to even slow people like me. And if I can understand it, you can understand it. Because I'll admit there are some parts of the Bible, if we're honest, can be hard to understand. Proverbs is not one of those parts. So, wake up. Proverbs is as clear, concise, and blunt as it possibly can be. It's God putting His wisdom on a bottom shelf so every one of us can reach this thing. I mean, just look at a couple of examples of some of the simple things found in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 4. Sluggards, people who just kind of lay around and don't do anything. Sluggards don't plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. Well, this isn't really hard to understand. You don't plow, you don't sow, you don't eat. Anything hard about that? Nope. Everybody got that. Or look at this example. The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with Him. So what would you say? God hates cheating. He loves honesty. Anything unclear about that? I don't think you need to be a sage to understand that. That's pretty darn simple. So as simple as these ideas might seem, these kind of basic principles are the things that pull together to form the kind of a life that God called and envisioned us and destined us to live. Good things. So to experience this full life that Jesus talks about when He says, I've come to give you life and give it to the full, He gives us wisdom. You know, we have to smarten up. Now, up front, I'll admit, Proverbs doesn't give you a guarantee. This isn't like a magic formula. If you do this, you're always guaranteed to get this outcome. That's not the point. It's more a book about principles than promises. But it talks about how life works. And it downloads godly wisdom into the different areas of our lives. And it promises that if we will follow it, we increase the odds of experience this kind of a life God has in mind. I don't know what you think, but I want to increase my odds of doing well. I really do. In fact, the first few chapters of the book are sort of framed or written kind of in the voice of a loving parent wanting to pass along what they've learned about what really matters in life. I heard somebody describe it this way: Proverbs is full of short sentences filled with long experience. They're little phrases, little terms, little catchy phrases that somehow distill down the experiences, the ups and downs, the challenges of what life really means. And the book is attributed to the great King Solomon. Now, some of you may know a little bit about Bible stories about King Solomon. He was one of the greatest kings Israel ever had. He was the son of a man named David, the guy of David and Goliath fame. He was the third king of Israel. And one day, this is all in 1 Kings chapter 3, if you want to read it. I'm not going to go verse by verse. I'm just going to kind of interpolate it for you. But I'll summarize it for the time's sake. God comes to Solomon in a dream and gives him an incredible offer. It's like Shark Tank. He says, your father was David, someone whose life I showed favor to. I want to do something for you, Solomon. Well, David had just recently died. Solomon had just recently been crowned king. So God comes to him in a dream and says, Solomon, here's my deal. I'll give you any one thing you want. Ask for it, and it'll be yours. So what's it going to be? A little side note, if God made you that offer tonight, what would you ask for? Win the lottery maybe, or good health, or long life? I don't know. So God says, Solomon, what do you want? You want fame? I'll give it. You want pleasure, power, wealth, and possessions? I'll give you that. You name it. Solomon, it's all yours. Call it. And some of you know what Solomon asked for. The one thing he asked for was wisdom. He said, God, if you would give me any one thing in life, I simply ask for wisdom to govern your people. And God was so knocked out, shocked, and pleased with that request, so impressed, he said, not only am I going to give you wisdom more than anybody in the world, I'll actually throw in all that other stuff as well. That flicks my switch. Yeah, all that other stuff, yeah, I'm going to throw that in too. So you're going to get this wisdom, and you're going to have doors open wide. It's going to create opportunities. It's going to lead you to a life you never dreamed possible. And so Solomon became known as the greatest king, the wisest king who ever lived. So the book of Proverbs is a collection of some of what he shared. There are a few other authors that are mixed into Proverbs as well. But think about it. It's been written down and passed along from generation to generation. In fact, a lot of business books and motivational books and leadership books that are secular are filled with Proverbs. They're smarter than Christians. They know what it'll take to succeed. It certainly won't get you to heaven, but it will help you succeed. And there are a lot of guys that aren't even Christians who use the principles of Proverbs and do real well in life. They won't do well in afterlife, but they're doing well in life. And I'm thinking, what do they know you can't know? Nothing. They just know Proverbs and believe it because it's written to help us succeed in life. So we're going to be digging into some of that wisdom because it still speaks to us today. Proverbs does more than just share some good ideas about how to live. It calls people to a different way of life, a different objective, and a different purpose in life. What Proverbs says is just like Solomon placed wisdom as the highest value of his life and the goal of his life, he says you'd be wise to do the same. In fact, the best possible goal you can have in life is this. It says again and again, pursue wisdom. Of all the things you could chase, make your life about all sorts of different kinds of things. You have options. But from the writer of Proverbs, his invitation is that stuff doesn't hold a candle to wisdom. So make wisdom your greatest goal, your chief goal. And look at what he says. He says it over and over again. Get wisdom, just do it. Though it costs you all you have, get understanding, cherish her. So he's speaking of wisdom as in terms of a woman. Cherish her, and she will exalt you. Embrace her, and she will honor you. Solomon says, of all the things you could choose, you will never regret pursuing wisdom. Wisdom. He says, get it. I don't care what it costs. Don't let anything stand in your way. And he goes on to say, if you'll take this step, if you'll put wisdom at the top of your goal list, you'll discover what Solomon discovered. It actually will lead and pay off in every other area of life. Look at what he writes in Proverbs 3, beginning in verse 13. Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She's more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. This is what's available by putting wisdom first if you don't want to screw up, wreck your life. She's a tree of life, he says, to those who take hold of her. To those who hold her fast, he will be blessed. That's the reward. That's on the back end of pursuing wisdom. Because according to this wise father, those who arrange their lives around the goal of gaining wisdom are going to receive rewards that far exceed anything you could imagine, regardless of whether the markets are up or down, or the price of gas is up or down, or the rate of inflation. Wisdom will never, never lose its value. And wisdom will get you promoted. Wisdom will bring rewards to you. Start with wisdom. Don't worry about calculus. Get wisdom. Calculus didn't do me anything in school. Didn't get me any promotion in college. But being smart instead of dumb, that has helped a great deal. And that will help you. You think you want gold? He says wisdom is better. Solomon says you think you want fame, achievement, and power? He says wisdom, much better. Because wisdom can give you all of that. Solomon says nothing you desire holds a candle to wisdom. But wait a minute. I'm forgetting what series we're in right now, right? Because we're talking about how to wreck your life. So that would sort of change my advice on wisdom. So here's what I would say instead. When it comes to wisdom, just take a casual approach. When you stumble across it, maybe pay attention, maybe don't. Don't prioritize it for sure, because chances are you know better than anyone who's ever lived before you. Why bother with the hard work of learning wisdom from others who have been down the same road you might go down? Just do it on your own, because of course you're smart enough to do it on your own. You're smarter than anybody who ever lived before, right? I mean, can we be honest? Isn't that the approach that a lot of people take? They never stop long enough to say, whoa, wait a minute. Why do I have to make these mistakes? Why can't I learn from other people's experience, from other sources of wisdom that are greater than myself? You know, you can learn from people who fail. You can learn from people who fall. What not to do. That's a lesson. That didn't turn out real good. Maybe if I get that opportunity, I won't do that. If everybody that goes to Hollywood gets married 12 times and gets on drugs or arrested, maybe I ought to rethink my priority when I go to Hollywood. Maybe I ought to pick better friends, and maybe I ought to put some boundaries around my life so I don't end up a rich fool and look like a jerk and mess up my life. I'm thinking, man, how long does it take these young people who are so gifted, so talented, to kind of get it that has never produced any success at all? It's just wrecked people's lives, and they've died young before they ever reached their great potential, and that wasn't God's will. But they went down the path of a fool, and they avoided any wisdom. I'd rather learn from your mistake than I have to make it, right? You know, I came out of a divorced home like 5 times. That ought to be well, Elizabeth Taylor's got us beat. But I remember thinking, I'm only 10, but I'm thinking, I don't want a home like this. I don't want a relationship like this. I don't want a marriage like this. And I would look and I would make mental notes That's not going to happen on my watch. And I never wanted to go home. And I said, I want my kids to always want to come home. So now they never leave. But anyway, you get my point. You get the point, all right? So that's the invitation of this series, or of this book of Proverbs. And here we should be clear about what wisdom is. Wisdom is not the same thing as knowledge. We all know that, right? You know tons of people, just like I do, who know a lot. They might even know tons about the Bible. So our society and culture is drowning in knowledge and information. I mean, most of you are carrying a smartphone, and you've got every piece of information the world can offer at your fingertips, just a few taps away. We have a surplus of information, but stupidity has no limit. Can we be honest? Aren't we starving for wisdom in our world? Just starving. You can be highly educated and be an idiot. You can have lots of degrees and make no sense at all. Just turn on the TV. Wisdom isn't about IQ or intellect or knowledge. Frankly, not even about common sense. It's more than that. Wisdom, if I summed it up, is skill in living. Skill in it. Anybody ever been around somebody with a great skill? I don't know what it might be. Maybe they were greatly skilled in a game. Maybe they were greatly skilled in craftsmanship. But whatever it was, you just appreciate somebody highly skilled. They know what to do, what not to do, why that won't work, how to fix that. They're highly skilled. God says wisdom is skill in doing life, in living. It's knowing what's true, what's right, and following it with good judgment. It's seeing and responding to life from God's perspective. That's what wisdom is all about. And Solomon says, if you aim for that, it's a game changer. Pursue wisdom. Hang around smart people. He that walketh with wise men shall what? Be wise. He that hang around a fool shall be destroyed. Who are your friends? Well, my best friend, what, your hairdresser, your nail salon? Let's find out what she's been through, how her life has turned out. You might want a different nail salon. You might want a different hairstylist. You might at least want to shut down any advice they might want to give you about doing life. Now, I want my children, I want my grandchildren to succeed in life, and I bet you do too. But I want more than that for them. I want them to live a truly fulfilled life, marked and characterized by some wisdom. And when I say a wise life or a fulfilled life, I mean it's filled with rich and meaningful relationships. It's marked by contentment. You're not driven by an obsession with envy, comparing yourself to other people, which we'll talk about as a means of wrecking your life. It's a life that's not just about them, but it's about others as well, where good decisions are made, maybe even in the area of finances, but not just for your own personal benefit, but for the generous benefit of other people around you. I can't be a blessing to you if I'm not blessed. I can't give to you if I'm broke. I can't help you if I'm a wreck. See, I can't give you what I don't have. Lives, we want lives in my children that are marked with joy and love and peace. And of course, most of all, rooted in an authentic relationship with God Almighty. Because I've known people who have achieved unbelievable success, but whose lives I would never want. They are a wreck. You know people like that? Some of them are billionaires. I wouldn't trade places with them for anything. And I've known people who may not have much in the eyes of our world, but they live, the way they live in peace, they live with some joy. Their relationships are really good. They have a great relationship with God. I want what they have. I want that joy, that peace, that relationship. Because when I think about the people I admire most, those lives that have touched my life, people I want to emulate, those are the things they live constantly. The godly wisdom of Proverbs helps us steer the course in finding the right path of wisdom. I want that for my kids. That's my prayer, and I've been praying that for my kids since they were conceived in the womb. I don't just want it for my kids. I'd like to see it happen for you, for all of us. That's why we're doing this, to help each other find this way of wisdom and not wreck our lives in ways we don't have to. I mean, have you ever watched the news? Some criminal, or you've heard some story of somebody, or a massive failure of some CEO or pastor, and you thought, man, that was stupid. Well, hello. That person just stepped off the path of wisdom and stepped onto the path of a fool and wrecked their whole life. See, whether you're a young student with most of your years ahead of you, or whether you're later in life with most of your years behind you, it is never too late to pursue wisdom. Nobody sets out to wreck their lives, but it is so easy to do. That's why Proverbs, we'll see, doesn't just talk about what the way of wisdom looks like. It also talks about the alternative. Again and again, he will contrast between these two things, the way of the wise and the path of a fool. Because throughout life, you're going to face crossroads, decision moments, even in big ways or small ways, where you have to decide, will we go the wise way or will we take the foolish way? And I know when you see that word fool, it rubs people wrong because nobody wants to be thought of as a fool. We think of somebody that's a fool, it's not very smart, not bright, low intelligence. But according to Proverbs, that's not true. Fools could have a sky-high IQ. They may have a reputation for success in business. But what makes them a fool is they ignore God's wisdom. They choose to go their own way. Sounds like Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way. This stuff just comes. It was a horse that ran by and I just jumped on it. Okay. You were probably thinking that. They go their own way, and there is a way that seemeth right to a fool. It seems right, but at the end are ways of destruction. That's not good. So I don't want to be drawn to the perspectives of the crowd around us in our culture today. I want to look at what God might have to say. So throughout the Proverbs, we see this contrast between a wise person and a fool. Here's a few examples. Proverbs 12, verse 15 says, the way of the fool seems right to them, but the wise listen to good advice. Ever known anybody like that? Just wasn't teachable? You couldn't tell them anything? Their hearts just weren't open? Now, don't point them out right now, please. They knew better than everybody else. Or look at this. The wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but a fool is hot-headed, yet feels secure. See, a wise person realizes in these choice moments, it matters what I do, what choice I make. There is good and bad in the world, and I need to make wise choices to go down God's direction instead of my own way. But a fool says, what's the difference? There's no consequences. I'll do whatever I want. Or this one in Proverbs 29, verse 11. A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. How many road rage fatalities could be avoided if that were true? Or how many marriages could be hurt because venting full rage destroys a person or destroys a child, or could cost you a job. I'm going to tell him what I think of him. Go ahead, get in the unemployment line. It's not wise. Now, God says so I'm going to believe it. It's not wise to give full. Shut up. Put a muzzle on your mouth. Quit biting people. And if you do have that control. You're not out of control. You have control of what you say, what you think. You have the ability to say, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I've done that a lot lately and just said nothing because the political climate is so volatile. Yeah, I'm not going to give full vent to anything. And our country is giving full vent to it now, and it's just getting more toxic and more toxic. It's terrible. Can't even have a discussion and reasonable disagreement. No, it's got to be rage and anger and I hate you and I wish you were dead or something. No. How many times in my past of my life have I ever played the fool where I just said something I wish I could put back in my mouth? Or where I did something I regret. Anybody else in the room know anything about that? Yeah, or am I the only one? No. See, you know what I'm talking about, because every one of us knows what it's like from time to time to slip down that foolish path. The writer of Proverbs says you don't have to do that. You don't have to play the fool. You don't have to go that direction. Because left to ourselves, we can do a great job of making a train wreck of our lives. You ever said to anybody like, who told you that? Who'd you talk to? Nobody. Great. That's just great. See, don't go that way. Why would you ever want to damage more relationships or squander more time or energy? Why shed any more unnecessary tears or accumulate more regrets in your life? Why? See, what if you were to just humbly admit you don't know everything? What if you were simply to say, God, I need your wisdom in my life. I need wisdom greater than myself, which is ultimately what Solomon says is the essence of true wisdom. Look at this from Proverbs 9, verse 9 and 10. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So what does he mean? He means the keys to wisdom is to acknowledging two great truths in life. You've heard me say it before. Two great realizations about life. One, there is a God. Two, it ain't you. Right? The path to wisdom starts at that trailhead. There is a God and you ain't him. The minute we come to that place of humbling ourselves, opening ourselves up, Solomon says, hey, that's when the journey toward wisdom begins. It says the fear of the Lord. Now, when it says that, it's not this trembling, scared, like God's going to zap me kind of a deal. He's talking about a reverence, a respect, an acknowledgement. See, as I said, there is a God and I'm not him. So that's the first step toward being a wise person. Skill living is built on that foundation, folks. So here's my challenge as I wrap up. The basics of enrolling in the school of wisdom, which I want to invite all of us to do, are three things. Number one, ask for it. Number two, look for it. And number three, act on it. Simple stuff, easy to remember. First, ask for it. I don't know how much you pray. I don't know what the chances are you have needs and there are things you bring to God and ask him for. That's a wonderful thing. He invites us to do that. But just think about it. In your life, when's the last time you just asked God for wisdom? What if, like Solomon, you were to make that the prayer of your heart? Maybe on a daily, multi-time a day thing where you just say, Lord, I need your wisdom. Guide me. Help me. Not just in the face of a big decision or some big obstacle, just in my life every day, in every area. I want your wisdom, Lord. Give me wisdom today. And one of my favorite verses is found in James 1, verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, and it will be given to you. See, that's a promise. It will be given to you. I love this verse for maybe two main reasons, because a lot of times I might lack wisdom, and a lot of times I might have serious faults. But here's the beauty of this promise. It doesn't depend on how much wisdom I have or don't have, or how many faults I struggle with. It's God's faithfulness and grace who says, you come to me, even in your faults, even in your confusion, and just ask me, Lord, give me your wisdom. And if we were all to imitate what Solomon did, that given the chance to ask him for anything, we would simply pray, Lord, give me wisdom. You could do that every day. Ask for it. Second, look for it. Don't just expect it to fall on you magically. Don't just look at where everybody else is, you know, maybe in the Amazon self-help section of the bookstore or your YouTube influencer you like to follow. Why don't you look for wisdom from God in a place like Proverbs, to actually dig in and see what it has to say? That's God's wisdom. At least try it. There's a habit I was introduced to early in my walk with Jesus, and I've encouraged other people, I've mentioned it here many times, who are kind of new to reading the Bible to experiment with. Read one chapter of Proverbs every day. What, a minute and a half maybe, and a cup of coffee? Is that really going to screw up your day? I know people who have done it for years. And here's the beautiful thing about Proverbs. There's 31 chapters to the book, which happens to coincide with the number of days in most of our months, 31 days. And so as a habit, to just get a rhythm going, whatever the day is on the calendar, read that chapter of Proverbs. So today is July 21st. So read Proverbs 21. And again, you'll just find unbelievable practical wisdom on things like steering clear of gossip, being honest in your communication with others, dealing with conflict in your life. Anybody got any conflict in your life? Oh, good. You can just skip the chapter. But for those of us who occasionally run into issues, there's so much there. Incredibly practical stuff. What we're trying our best to do is bring the beautiful truths and wisdom of Proverbs written so long ago, but still speaking clearly into my life and yours today. Whatever phase of life you're in, whatever challenge you might be facing, ask for it. Just ask for it. It doesn't hurt. Look for it in good places and finally act on it. Do something about what you read or that you've just learned. See? Again, knowledge is not the same as wisdom. This is not a goal just to shove as much spiritual information in our brain as we possibly can. It's about learning a way of life, a way of wisdom that Solomon so clearly outlines. And it's amazing how at different times in a relationship or month or day, God will bring to you one of those Proverbs you read to give you a boundary, a caution, or a green light in making a decision. Another challenging verse from James 1 is don't merely listen to the word and deceive yourself, but do what it says. In other words, be doers of the word, not hearers only. In fact, Jesus used the parable of a wise and a foolish builder, didn't he? And the difference between the wise and foolish builder was not one heard what Jesus said and the other didn't. They both heard the teachings of Jesus. They both did. He says the foolish man built his house on sand. The wise man built his house on a rock. And Jesus says, that's the guy that hears my word and does it. He says, oh yeah, storms, they're going to come, but you'll still be standing. As Elton John sings, I'm still standing. Oh, don't get religious on me. It's a song. It's a song. I'm 80, I'm still standing. And I've been to hell and back, and probably some of you as well. We're just talking about an illustration. Will that be said of you? Look how many people we've lost early, prematurely, because of stupidity, because of being foolish. So will you actually do what God says? Not just hear it, not just know it, but actually do it. That's the difference between a wise man and a foolish builder in that parable. Simple. It's putting wisdom into practice when it comes to my relationships or the way I make decisions or whatever it may be. So that's my question. What do you say? Are you up for enrolling in this adventure? Do you want to begin the process of acquiring something that is worth so much more than gold? It all starts by embracing this beautiful, simple truth, the knowledge there is a God who is powerful and personal and madly in love with you. And God, who's in Jesus, reached out his hand of forgiveness and grace to all of us living as fools without him. And he says, come to me, receive my grace. Let me teach you my way. You don't have to wreck your life. I can help you. And that's where it all starts. And maybe you're here, maybe you're watching online, and maybe you haven't ever admitted the simple truth that you know something about that path of the fool. And maybe you're thinking privately, I wish I'd heard this earlier in my life. The number of things I'd save myself from if I had just learned this early in life. Well, wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? Or maybe you're early on, young, and you want to set a course that serves you well all through life. If you know something about this path of the fool, let me say three things. Number one, you're not the only one. Every one of us knows what that's about. Second, there's no mistake so great God can't forgive it. And today can be a new beginning for you. And third, it's never too late to start that journey towards wisdom. You can simply admit whatever foolishness has happened, your past is not your future. And you can begin now to learn a new way, the way that God's made possible through Jesus. You ask for it, you look for it, you act on it. And that can start today. So what do you say? Will you enroll in this school with me? Will you say, God, I've tried it my way long enough, hadn't worked out. I'm ready to try your way. Take your hand. Allow you to show me what it means to live a life of wisdom. Would you bow your head with me? Maybe you're here and God is speaking to your heart. That's a good thing. Maybe you've been trying to do life marriage, relationship, whatever it is, on your own, without God. All you intellects, you believe in him, but you're just still basically controlling your own life in your own way. And maybe it hasn't worked out. How about trying it God's way? Why don't you just pray in your heart, Jesus, today I give you control of my life. I give you my life today. I want to begin walking the path of wisdom. Help me off the path of a fool, and help me learn to follow your instructions with wisdom so I can live an abundant, fruitful life that results in good things for me and for those around me. That would be my prayer. If that's you today, nobody's going to bother you. Nobody's going to come to you. Can I pray for you? Just slip a hand up and take it down. Say, hey, God bless you. I see hands all over the auditorium. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember, we're talking about wisdom today so we don't wreck our lives. We don't have to be foolish in our marriage, with our money, with our health, with our children, with our relationships. God's got wisdom for every area that will work out well and increase our odds of finishing life strong and well and without regret. And he's ready to forgive and cleanse the past. Father, would you bless my friends who have just lifted hands around this auditorium with new life. Thank you. As they accept you as their Savior, their God, their guide, I pray this will be a new day of new beginnings in moving from the path of a fool to the path of the wise. May they give ear and attention to your words, and may they enjoy life abundantly. Thank you for the gift of eternal life through faith in Jesus Christ. And that's the beginning of all wisdom. And help us realize that your plans for us are good and not evil, to give us a hope and a future. May that be the portion received by those today who lifted a hand and said, Jesus, I give you my life. That's my prayer, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen and amen.